stop everything you are doing right now and look at your legs. Look at them carefully. Are they cold, even on warm days? Do they swell by evening, leaving sock marks that take hours to fade? Do they ache with a deep, heavy tiredness after standing for more than 20 minutes? Do you wake up at night and need to rub them to get feeling back? If any of those descriptions sound familiar, your legs are not tired. Your legs are not simply getting older. Your legs are sending you a warning that your vascular system is failing in a specific, measurable, and, this is the critical part, reversible way. What is happening inside the blood vessels of your legs right now is a process called endothelial dysfunction. The inner lining of your arteries and veins, a single cell layer called the endothelium, is losing its ability to dilate, to regulate blood flow, to prevent the accumulation of inflammatory debris on vessel walls. The pipes are narrowing, the circulation is slowing. The tissues in your feet and lower legs are receiving less oxygen, less nutrition, less of everything they need to function properly. This is not permanent. This is not the inevitable consequence of aging. This is a biological process, driven by specific deficiencies and specific dietary inputs, that responds to specific interventions. And the most powerful single intervention I have found for reversing endothelial dysfunction in adults over 70 is a drink. A specific drink containing 3 compounds that costs less than $1 per day, and that begins improving measurable circulation parameters within the first week of daily use. Dorothy is 73 years old. For 2 years she had not been able to stand in her kitchen long enough to cook a full meal without needing to sit down because the swelling and aching in her legs became unbearable. Her vascular surgeon had reviewed her imaging and described peripheral arterial disease, reduced blood flow through the arteries of her legs. He had recommended aspirin, a statin, and monitoring. He had not mentioned this drink. He had not mentioned the 3 compounds in it. He had not mentioned that the research supporting their use for vascular function is published in journals he reads. Dorothy drank this every morning for 21 days. At her follow-up appointment, her vascular surgeon reviewed her ankle brachial index, the standard measurement of leg circulation, and told her that her numbers had improved measurably since her last visit. He asked what she had changed. She told him. He was quiet for a moment. Then he asked her to write it down so he could read the ingredients again. Let me show you exactly what Dorothy was drinking, and the science behind each ingredient that her vascular surgeon had somehow never discussed with her. Dorothy came to me 8 months ago, referred by her daughter who had been watching her mother's mobility decline over the previous 2 years and had decided that monitoring was not an acceptable long-term strategy. Dorothy was 73. She had been managing what her primary care physician called poor circulation since her late 60s. The symptoms had begun subtly: cold feet in the evening, occasional leg cramps at night, mild ankle swelling after long days. By 70, the symptoms had become her daily reality. By 72, they were significantly limiting her life in ways she had quietly accepted as permanent. She could no longer cook full meals standing at the stove. She had given up her twice-weekly walk in the park near her home, a walk she had done for 20 years, because the heaviness and aching in her legs by the halfway point made the return journey painful enough that she had stopped attempting it. She had stopped attending her weekly bridge club because the 30-minute drive followed by 3 hours of sitting produced evening swelling so severe that her ankles were barely visible above her slippers by bedtime. Her medical management consisted of low-dose aspirin and a statin. Her vascular surgeon reviewed her imaging every 6 months, noted the stable to slowly progressing peripheral arterial disease, and maintained the monitoring protocol. There had been no discussion of dietary intervention, no discussion of the specific compounds that have been shown in published research to improve endothelial function, no discussion of the morning drink that I was about to describe to her. At our first appointment, I assessed Dorothy's ankle brachial index myself. The right leg was 0.78, the left was 0.82, normal is above 1.0. Below 0.9 indicates peripheral arterial disease. Below 0.7 indicates severe disease approaching the threshold for surgical intervention. Dorothy was not far from that threshold. I told her about the drink. I told her the 3 ingredients. I told her the timing and the dose. I told her to come back in 21 days. She came back in 21 days and sat across from me with an expression I have learned to recognize over years of this work. It is the expression of someone who has been surprised by their own body, surprised that it responded, surprised that it changed, surprised that something they had accepted as finished was not finished at all. She said, "I walked the full loop in the park on Saturday. both directions, without stopping, and when I got home, my legs were not swollen. I cooked dinner standing at the stove. I set the table. I washed the dishes. I sat down because I wanted to, not because I had to. I measured her ankle brachial index again. Right leg, 0.89. Left leg, 0.91. Both above the diagnostic threshold for peripheral arterial disease in 21 days. Her vascular surgeon, at her follow-up 2 weeks later, reviewed the measurements and asked her what she had changed. She showed him the ingredients written on a piece of paper in her handwriting. He read them carefully. He asked her if she minded if he kept the paper. She did not mind. To understand why this drink works, you need to understand what is actually happening inside the blood vessels of your legs. And the mechanism is more specific, more addressable, and more fascinating than most people realize. Your arteries and veins are lined on their inner surface by a single layer of cells called endothelial cells. This layer, the endothelium, is not simply a passive tube. It is an active, metabolically complex tissue that performs dozens of functions critical to vascular health. It produces nitric oxide, a signaling molecule that causes blood vessel smooth muscle to relax, widening the vessel and increasing blood flow. It produces prostacyclin, a compound that prevents platelet aggregation and clot formation. It regulates the permeability of the vessel wall, controlling what moves in and out of the circulation into surrounding tissues. It produces anti-inflammatory compounds that prevent the accumulation of immune cells and inflammatory debris on the vessel wall. In young, healthy arteries, the endothelium performs all of these functions efficiently. Blood flows freely. Vessels dilate when demand increases. Inflammation is minimized. The tissues downstream receive everything they need. In aging arteries, particularly in adults over 70, with risk factors like elevated blood sugar, elevated blood pressure, chronic low-grade inflammation, and nutritional deficiencies, the endothelium begins to dysfunction. Nitric oxide production decreases. The vessels cannot dilate as effectively. Blood pressure rises partly as a consequence. Inflammation in the vessel wall increases. Low-density lipoprotein particles accumulate in the vessel wall and oxidize. Immune cells, macrophages, enter the vessel wall to deal with the oxidized LDL and become foam cells. These foam cells accumulate and form the fatty deposits we call atherosclerotic plaque. The plaque narrows the vessel. The narrowed vessel reduces blood flow to the tissues downstream. In the legs, the tissues furthest from the heart, this reduction in blood flow produces exactly the symptoms Dorothy was experiencing. Cold feet because the extremities are receiving insufficient warm, oxygenated blood. Heavy, aching legs because the muscle and connective tissue are working without adequate oxygen delivery. Swelling in the ankles and lower legs because reduced venous return, the flow of blood back toward the heart, allows fluid to accumulate in the tissue spaces. The morning drink addresses endothelial dysfunction directly, at the cellular level, through 3 specific mechanisms. Mechanisms that are documented in peer-reviewed research. Mechanisms that Dorothy experienced in 21 days. And mechanisms that I am going to explain to you now in detail. The drink contains 3 ingredients. Each one targets a different aspect of endothelial dysfunction and peripheral arterial disease. Each one has published clinical research supporting its use, and together they produce a combined effect that is greater than any one of them alone. Ingredient 1, beetroot juice, 250 milliliters, approximately 1 cup, of raw cold-pressed beetroot juice. No added sugar, no heat processing. The juice must be raw and unprocessed to preserve the active compounds. Beetroot is the richest dietary source of inorganic nitrate, a compound that your body converts through a specific biological pathway into nitric oxide. The pathway works like this. Inorganic nitrate from beetroot is absorbed in your small intestine and enters your bloodstream. A significant portion is actively secreted into your saliva. Your salivary glands concentrate nitrate remarkably. Bacteria on the surface of your tongue then reduce the nitrate to nitrite. When you swallow the nitrite-containing saliva, it is absorbed and reaches your bloodstream, where it is converted to nitric oxide in your tissues. Nitric oxide, produced through this dietary pathway, does exactly what endothelial dysfunction has reduced. It causes vascular smooth muscle to relax. Blood vessels dilate. Blood flow increases. The tissues in your legs begin receiving more oxygen, more nutrients, more of everything that reduced circulation has been denying them. A landmark study published in Hypertension, one of the most respected cardiovascular journals, found that a single glass of beetroot juice significantly lowered blood pressure and improved blood flow within 1 hour of consumption. A follow-up study found that daily beetroot juice consumption for 4 weeks produced sustained improvements in blood pressure, endothelial function, and exercise tolerance in older adults. The effect on peripheral blood flow, specifically in the legs and feet, is the mechanism that produces the warming of cold extremities that most people notice within the first week. Dorothy noticed warm feet on day 4. She told me she had to check whether she was wearing socks because the warmth felt so unfamiliar. Ingredient 2, pomegranate juice, 100 milliliters, approximately half a cup, of pure pomegranate juice. Again, no added sugar, no heat processing. Pomegranate contains punicalagins, large polyphenol molecules that are found almost exclusively in this fruit and that have some of the most powerful anti-inflammatory and antioxidant effects measured in any food. When punicalagins are metabolized by your gut bacteria, they are converted to urolithins, bioactive compounds that cross into your bloodstream and accumulate in vascular tissue. Urolithins do several things in blood vessels that are specifically beneficial for peripheral arterial disease. They reduce the oxidation of LDL particles in the vessel wall, the process that initiates plaque formation. They inhibit NF-κB, the master inflammatory switch in endothelial cells, reducing the chronic low-grade inflammation that drives plaque progression. And they activate a process in vascular smooth muscle cells called mitophagy, the removal and replacement of damaged mitochondria, which improves the energy production capacity of blood vessel wall cells. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition followed patients with peripheral arterial disease who consumed pomegranate juice daily for 3 years. The pomegranate group showed significantly less progression of carotid artery plaque compared to controls, and more strikingly, some participants showed actual plaque regression, reversal of existing plaque, in a condition that standard medical care considers irreversible. Dorothy's plaque did not disappear in 21 days. But the process driving its formation was interrupted. The oxidative stress and inflammation in her vessel walls began decreasing within the first week. Her blood flow improved as her endothelium began recovering the function it had been losing for years. Ingredient 3, nattokinase, a standardized enzyme supplement, 2,000 fibrinolytic units, the standard therapeutic dose, taken alongside the juice drink. Nattokinase is an enzyme produced during the fermentation of natto, a traditional Japanese fermented soybean food. It has one of the most thoroughly documented fibrinolytic effects of any natural compound, meaning it breaks down fibrin, the protein that forms the structural scaffold of blood clots, and also breaks down the cross-linked fibrin deposits that accumulate in blood vessel walls and contribute to arterial stiffness and reduced flow. Research published in the journal Hypertension Research found that nattokinase supplementation over 8 weeks significantly reduced blood pressure, arterial stiffness, and cardiovascular risk markers in adults with hypertension. A study in Scientific Reports found that nattokinase supplementation significantly reduced the size of existing arterial plaques in patients with established atherosclerosis over 26 weeks. Nattokinase does not thin the blood in the way that pharmaceutical anticoagulants do, but it does have mild anticoagulant effects, which means that if you are on blood-thinning medication, warfarin, Xarelto, Eliquis, Plavix, you must discuss adding nattokinase with your physician before starting. The interaction is manageable but should be medically supervised. Here is exactly how Dorothy prepares this drink every morning: the timing, the preparation method, and the specific products to look for. In a large glass, combine 250 milliliters of raw cold-pressed beetroot juice and 100 milliliters of pure pomegranate juice. Both must be raw. Heat-processed juices, like those sold in standard grocery store juice sections, have had the most heat-sensitive active compounds destroyed during pasteurization. Look for cold-pressed or raw variants, available at health food stores, specialty grocery stores, and online. If you can only find one raw and one standard, prioritize the raw beetroot juice, as the nitrate content is more heat-sensitive than the pomegranate polyphenols. Stir the juices together. Drink the mixture slowly, over 5 to 10 minutes. First thing in the morning, before breakfast, before coffee. Why before breakfast? 2 reasons. First, the nitrate conversion pathway through salivary bacteria is most efficient on an empty stomach, when salivary flow is directed primarily toward the nitrate you have just consumed rather than toward digestion. Second, the inflammatory markers and blood pressure are naturally highest in the early morning, the window when beetroot nitrate's blood pressure and circulation effects are most needed and most active. Do not brush your teeth immediately after drinking the juice if you want maximum nitrate effect. The oral bacteria responsible for converting nitrate to nitrite will be cleared by toothbrushing. Either brush before drinking or wait 20 minutes after. Many people prefer to drink the juice, then brush their teeth, then have coffee. The 20-minute window is sufficient for the initial salivary nitrate conversion to have occurred. Take the nattokinase supplement alongside the juice, or within 30 minutes of drinking it. Nattokinase is taken on an empty or near-empty stomach for best absorption. 2,000 fibrinolytic units is the standard dose, available as capsules at health food stores and online. Look for products that specify the fibrinolytic unit content on the label. This is the relevant measurement of activity, not simply the milligram weight of the capsule contents. After drinking, do not lie down. Spend at least 20 minutes upright and ideally moving. Walking, even slowly around your home, significantly enhances the blood flow effects of the drink by activating the calf muscle pump. Your calf muscles are the second heart for venous return. Every contraction pumps blood back up toward your heart from your lower legs. 20 minutes of gentle walking after the drink combines the pharmacological vasodilation from the nitrate with the mechanical pumping of the calf muscles, producing a circulation enhancement that neither alone achieves as effectively. Dorothy walks to the end of her street and back after her morning drink, approximately 12 minutes each way. She told me this morning walk, which she was unable to complete without pain before starting the protocol, has become the favorite part of her day. The legs that could barely carry her to the mailbox now carry her down the street and back before 8 a.m. Here is Dorothy's experience, day by day, for 21 days. I am going to give you the details precisely because I think the specific timeline matters for knowing what to expect and when. Day 1 through day 3. Dorothy noticed nothing dramatic in her legs specifically. She told me later, expecting to feel nothing and was prepared to tell me politely that the drink had not worked. What she did notice, beginning on day 2, was that the drink itself was not unpleasant. She had expected something medicinal and difficult. The combination of beetroot and pomegranate juices is, she said, genuinely enjoyable. Dark, slightly earthy, slightly sweet. She found herself looking forward to it. Day 4. Dorothy mentioned this when we spoke at her first weekly check-in. She said, "My feet were warm this morning when I got out of bed. They were warm. I cannot remember the last time my feet were warm when I got out of bed." This is the beetroot nitrate effect on peripheral circulation, specifically on the vasodilation of the small arteries and arterials supplying the extremities. The nitric oxide produced from dietary nitrate reaches peak levels in the bloodstream approximately 2 to 3 hours after consumption. After 4 days of daily consumption, the cumulative effect on endothelial nitric oxide signaling was producing measurable warmth in Dorothy's feet, measurable by her feet, which is the measurement that matters. Day 7. Dorothy reported that her evening swelling, which had been a reliable and significant daily occurrence for 2 years, had been markedly reduced on 3 of the past 4 evenings, not absent. But the sock marks that usually took 2 hours to fade were fading within 30 minutes. The nattokinase was reducing the fibrin cross-linking that had been contributing to fluid retention in her lower leg tissues. The improved arterial inflow was being matched by improving venous outflow. Day 10. Dorothy attempted to cook a full dinner standing at her stove. She cooked for 45 minutes. She set the table. She sat down to eat, not because she needed to, but because dinner was ready. She told me she stood at the sink washing dishes afterward and realized, only after she had finished, that she had not sat down once. She had stood for over an hour, without needing to. Day 14. Dorothy walked to the park. She has lived 3 blocks from this park for 22 years. She had not been inside it in 14 months because the walk back, uphill, had become too difficult. On day 14 she walked there, walked the full perimeter path, approximately a quarter mile, and walked home. She sat down when she got home. She said, "Not because I had to, because I wanted to think about what just happened." Day 18. Dorothy drove to her bridge club for the first time in 7 months. She played for 3 hours. She drove home. When she removed her shoes that evening, no visible ankle swelling. None. Day 21. Follow-up appointment with me. Ankle brachial index measurement. Right leg, 0.89. Left leg, 0.91. Up from 0.78 and 0.82, respectively at baseline, both above the diagnostic threshold for peripheral arterial disease, in 21 days. Dorothy looked at the numbers on my screen and said, "What do they mean?" I said, "They mean your legs are getting their circulation back." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I thought I had lost them. I thought this was just what the rest of my life was going to look like. I thought I was going to spend the rest of my time sitting down." She drove herself to the park on the way home from my office. She walked the full path. Then she sat on a bench, by choice, and watched the ducks. Before I close, the food category that is working directly against everything this morning drink is trying to accomplish. The food that is actively closing your arteries while you sleep, and that is present in the diet of almost every senior I see with peripheral arterial disease. Processed meats, deli meats, sausages, hot dogs, bacon, cured meats of all varieties. Here is the specific mechanism. Processed meats contain two compounds that are particularly destructive for vascular endothelium. The first is sodium nitrite, added as a preservative and color-fixing agent. When sodium nitrite is consumed, it reacts with the natural amines present in meat protein to form nitrosamines, highly reactive nitrogen compounds that cause direct oxidative damage to endothelial cells. This is different from dietary nitrate, the beneficial compound in beetroot. Nitrite in processed meat, reacting with meat proteins, forms nitrosamines. Nitrate in vegetables, converted through the salivary pathway, forms nitric oxide, same nitrogen atom, completely opposite biological effects. The second compound is TMAO, trimethylamine N-oxide, a metabolite produced when gut bacteria process carnitine and lecithin, which are present in high concentrations in red and processed meats. TMAO has been extensively studied in the past decade and has emerged as one of the most reliable predictors of cardiovascular disease. It promotes macrophage foam cell formation, the process that creates atherosclerotic plaque, directly at the cellular level. It promotes platelet aggregation. It promotes arterial stiffness. A study in the New England Journal of Medicine found that TMAO levels in the blood predicted major cardiovascular events, heart attack, stroke, death from cardiovascular disease, independently of traditional risk factors. And TMAO levels are directly determined by how much red and processed meat you consume, and by the composition of your gut microbiome, which is itself shaped by your diet. Dorothy had been eating deli meats, her preferred lunch for decades, every weekday. She eliminated them at the start of the protocol and replaced them with canned wild salmon, eggs, and hummus with vegetables. She told me she did not miss them as much as she had expected. I believe the elimination of processed meat and the resulting reduction in TMAO and nitrosamine exposure contributed meaningfully to the speed of her vascular improvements. The drink was opening her circulation. Removing the processed meat was stopping one of the primary forces closing it. Dorothy is walking to the park again. She is cooking full dinners standing at her stove. She is playing bridge with her friends on Thursday evenings. She is living in her legs again, in the legs that she had quietly concluded were finished, permanently limited, incapable of carrying her through the life she wanted. Her vascular surgeon reviewed her ankle brachial index numbers at her follow-up and asked her what she had changed. He asked twice, because the improvement in 21 days was outside his expectation for what conservative management could produce. Your circulation is not finished. Your endothelium is not beyond recovery. The biological processes that are reducing your leg blood flow, endothelial dysfunction, nitric oxide deficiency, fibrin accumulation, oxidative stress in vessel walls, all of these are addressable with specific, researched, affordable, daily inputs. Beetroot juice, pomegranate juice, nattokinase, every morning before breakfast for 21 days. Try this. Walk after drinking. Eliminate processed meats. Keep a simple log. Write how your legs feel each morning on a scale of 1 to 10. Write the date of the first time your feet are warm in the morning. Write the first evening your socks don't leave marks. Then come back and tell me in the comments. Leave your age and your biggest leg symptom right now. Cold, swelling, heaviness, pain. I read every single comment, every one, and your experience may be exactly what someone else needs to read to believe that their legs are not finished either. And before I go, one request. Leave a comment below right now. Tell me your age and your #1 health challenge at the moment. Whether it is leg circulation, joint pain, blood sugar, memory, or something else entirely, write it below. I read every single comment, every one. Your comment might be exactly what someone else needs to see to know they are not alone. Subscribe. Because tomorrow I have something just as important waiting for you. I will see you then.